What up, though? Hey, man. I'm listening to a physicist, theoretical physicist. I think Donald Hoffman. I like a lot of his work, but he, you come across new things that people that you pay attention to say, and there's a couple of things that I wanted to touch on. Yesterday we did a episode of I don't like the word episode. I think I'm going to stop doing that. We did Is This the Dream 4 yesterday, me and Infinity Corridors. Really, really fucking good episode. He put out a video that really got me thinking, and then I reached out to him pretty instantaneously, like, look, bro, we gotta fucking get in on this right now. And then I put up that Is This the Dream 4. So if you haven't seen that on the YouTube channel, go fucking check that shit out. But it's a really good episode, and we touched. The reason I say it's good is because we touched on some aspects of the Gnostic simulation model that in previous, moments I rejected. There's certain stuff that a lot of people talk about right now that to explain the way that I think, if you suggest something to me and it doesn't resonate, or you don't give me like good reason for it, you just say this is how it is and it's just because it's how it is. I don't like that. I don't like it when there's not evidentiary backing for something or a foundation that makes sense. And his video kind of gave some context and some alternate or original, because some of it, no one ever gives you a reason. So some original and some alternate explanations for certain parts of what a lot of people are saying currently. And so I perceive it to be a very different explanation for the Gnostic simulation model. It kind of moves away, not entirely. It doesn't move away from, it expands on the, no, it does move away from. It moves away from the Valentinian model and the Sethian model. A lot of people are saying that this is like a training school. And while I'm starting to kind of come around to that, a lot of the shit that they say to support that is nonsensical, and it's very like doughy-eyed. It's very I would almost say that it's fuck, I lost the word. It's in a sense, it's like looking at the world with rose-colored glasses, and not in totality, because it's like, so obviously go watch the video, but to give a little bit of reference, one of the things that we discussed was why this would be a training school, not just calling it a training school and talking about how we're X-Men in real life and all this other shit. We go into specifics of what that could mean. Why does that resonate with people? Why do we all, not all, why do many of us think like there's something else going on where, I feel like I have more capability than this. I feel like my consciousness and my my being is more important than what this place as a whole is making me feel like contextually. We went into, specifics on those things. And so listening to Donald Hoffman, he's essentially saying that we are all, and this it's not just Donald Hoffman. Let me clarify that. This is another aspect of what many of the people that subscribe to the this is a school, this is a college for the gods or the divine or whatever. They all also say that we are of one being. This is all just God experiencing itself. that does not, I've said this before, it doesn't resonate with me. I don't feel that in that way. I do feel connected to the first, very much so. And that leads me to feel a connection with some of you as your siblings of mine. And I've talked about that. And that's the Infinity Corridors. I'm not going to say his real name on here, but it feels weird not just calling him by his name. I call him brother all the time. There's others that have, I've been on, their show, or they're going to be on my show, or channel. We call each other brother, or I call them sister. And it's because I feel a specific, something, with them that feels very sibling-like. And we also talked about that, yes, in the Is This the Dream 4 video. There's many things like that I can't tell you what to believe. I can't tell you what to resonate with. But I do have to be genuine and authentic within myself and say, I am not ever going to say, yeah, I guess I am just a piece of God, putting on a show for itself. That doesn't resonate with, it doesn't make any sense. There's many texts that talk about how, this is what my research has been. There's the Duat videos. There's the simulation videos, obviously. There's the signal and the gamma signal videos. Like, all of these things are pointing to different outlets, different texts and religious texts, the Enuma Elish and it's way too early for me to start pronouncing weird religious texts, but there are many texts that relay this place as being a sort of training. And I've always acknowledged that. But then when I talk to other beings that are here currently right now, and I'm just now realizing it's because many of them don't study. They just listen to these. They listen to TikToks and videos of people that either don't know themselves or they don't fully explain why they're saying what they're saying. And so people have started to perpetuate this concept of, oh, this is divinity school, this is a college for the gods, blah, 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 blah. But then they don't know how to explain that further. And even more so, they don't know how to expand on it within their own mind and come up with theories. So they just kind of regurgitate things that they've heard someone else say. And so within those conversations in the past, I've always been like, yeah, I can see what that would be, but there are parts of what you're saying that don't make sense, And so we got into those things and found very, very potentially good answers for those things. And I was very surprised. These are things that I never thought I never thought that you'd be able to push me off my square on these. You know what I mean? I thought I knew for sure. Nope, this is not, that's not what this is. And I've said this, I think, on this channel even many times, even potentially made fun of it. And I stand corrected on a few of those things, And it's never to say that we know for sure what the situation is. All we can do, though, is use our experiences as context and say, okay, well, what the fuck does that mean for all of this? What does me going through this for however long, or having to deal with this for however long, what does that mean about this experience and what it's supposed to be? What is the purpose of that? Because there were certain, times where I would ask that question for myself and be like, the answer that you're giving me is fucking stupid. Anytime I would get into that conversation and pose that question, like, okay, well, there are some beings that go through this, and there are some beings that don't experience this ever, but, it seems like more of you do. What is the reason for that? Because it's not explained by your model. That video, Is This the Dream 4? It really gets into that. But, hearing Donald Hoffman talk about how we are all one consciousness experiencing itself. It's not that I don't understand the concept. I understand the concept of that. a way to kind of display that in this realm, in the microcosm, would be schizophrenia, for one. That's a easier to accept version. Many people would say instantly, like, yeah, I guess so. Those are different personalities. Personality disorders in general, and we always have these fucking stupid words we put on these illnesses and these disorders and all this shit, when in reality many times it's just we don't know how to communicate with those beings because they're on a different plane. They're experiencing a different place. Sometimes it's fucking poisoning. Sometimes that is heavy metal poisoning, or some sort of something happened to that person that contributed to them existing in the way that they are currently. It's case by case, just like everything else. Everything else is case by case. With any of this stuff, I'll preface by saying, like, it's weird for us to try to put a label of this is what this means for everyone, just generally speaking. But there are things that are somewhat objective, like love seems to be somewhat objective. The purpose of it, the teachings of it, seem to be pretty objective. I will say that the why are we here, what are we doing here, for me, seems to be fairly objective, especially after, kind of fleshing that out a little bit more. That definitely seems to be objective for me. And it's more so because you can point at any religious text, and even if it doesn't agree with every part of the model that we've been kind of building together, and separately, it still points to aspects of it. Like if you look at the stuff that we don't agree with fundamentally, like Christianity, it's still basically saying that this is a test. It's just saying it in a different way that doesn't say it's a test. You're here, and you either sin or you don't, and you're forgiven, but like, don't do it though, that is a test. That is, and it's also saying that there is something after this. So in a sense, does it really matter as much as you're making yourself think it does? All that is the exact same shit. It's the same shit. There's just someone else came along and put some extra rules on it, their own spin on it, to make you like subservient to them instead of yourself. So that is, Christianity comes from Gnosticism as well as some other, conglomeratory, components. But in any of those senses, do you remember it saying that you are not actually an individual, that you are inconsequential, and that you are just a piece of something? And so therefore, you have a consciousness and you are a person, but your individuality is of no consequence, because that's essentially what the sort of main proposed and kind of pushed narrative is with that whole school of thought. So basically saying, though the beings that I have disagreed with in the past, saying that this is a school and it's divinity school and so on and so forth, and that's why you're reincarnated if you didn't learn enough, then you are pushed back in. There are aspects of that make a little more sense to me now that I've been able to have my brother kind of like interpret things differently, and we chopped it up yesterday. I added my spin to it, he added his spin to it. It made a whole bunch of sense. The part, though, that does not make sense still after that very illuminating conversation is to say that we are all of one person, of one being. I can't, it's not that I can't understand that concept, like I said. It's just, why doesn't any of the text that is meant to be puzzle pieces for us, Gnostic texts, ancient Kemet texts, Babylonian texts, Sumerian texts, Greeks, Romans, none of it, all of it points to us being on a hero's journey, all of it points to us being individuals who are trying to sharpen the self to be essentially not a piece of shit, rather than try to make it sound all philosophical. All of these texts and these allegories and these stories, they're pointing to you making yourself the best you so that, you know, you're not a piece of shit, basically. So that doesn't fit the next puzzle piece over, which is many people saying you're not you, you're a piece of God, you're you know, a fragment of God, which I believe we are fragments of God, but in the sense of like being, you are a child of God. It says it, dude. It says you are a child of God. It doesn't say you're a clone of God, or, you know, God cut pieces off of himself and then gave them all consciousness. That's not what it says. It says you are a child of God, you know. Going back throughout the religious text, this is repeated over and over again, you know. Very redundant concept throughout religious denominations, religious practices, religious teachings. It's kind of like a representation of how redundant that theme is. Think about that whenever flat earthers want to prove to you that the earth is flat, they go to that kind of that picture that has all of the different cultures that had a flat earth type model or a domed realm model, which I still am not necessarily arguing against. That's very damning. That's very damning. I just don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter. I don't give a fuck if I'm on a globe or, you know, my personal, though, is that this is a sort of terrarium, but that could be figurative or literal, you know? It's the essential point is that this is not what you are taught from a child. This is not what you are told as an adult it is. That's my main thing. It doesn't matter if, you know, for all we know, we could all be wrong. That's what the gamma signal video is. That's what the signal video also is. We could all be wrong completely, you know, and it points to that. Why would they allow you to know that information when everything else seems to be very shrouded in secrets and lies and misdirections? Anyway, yeah, I just don't think that makes a whole lot of sense. And I think that I'm pointing at that because it's a very, very big line in the sand for simulationists. You know, there are other colleagues who are working on simulation theory from a mathematical standpoint, from a theoretical physics standpoint, and I do keep up with those things because it makes sense. That's also a piece of your work. If you're not keeping up with what they're doing, then you're potentially losing out on innovations to your own work. But it's also important to say to yourself, okay, so this aspect that you keep referencing within your model doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't have, at least from the position and vantage point that we have in the little camp that I'm in. The mathematics that doesn't make that true. That doesn't make that make sense because the mathematics exist within the simulation. The mathematics exist within this. So, in a sense, of course you can make some mathematics. You could force some mathematics to support a thing, but can you show those mathematics to a novice or to a complete, someone who's completely ignorant of those types of math? Would it make sense to them? Because if not, that's not effective. If it only makes sense to you and your colleagues, then it's not effective. That doesn't really prove what you're trying to prove. You've just created something to agree with itself. But as far as what we're saying, what our collective theory research points to is that we are not of one consciousness anymore. We do come from the first, or the one, or many people have many different names. It's God. Many different names for the first being, the first consciousness, the creator of all, whatever you want to call it. There are many, many, many religious texts, art, all these things that point to this being a hero's journey for individual consciousnesses to learn and grow and sharpen themselves for something to come after. That is a way to remove as much of the personable shit that I can, so that you can fill in the blanks yourself. But this is an experience to teach you about yourself and about how to conduct yourself and how to love yourself and be yourself, and so on and so on and so on, for an experience to come later, to come after. So for, the popular narrative to be, hey, you don't need to worry about being an individual. You don't need to worry about being a person. That seems very much like a narrative, I'll say. Seems very much like a narrative. And then if you look at the contextual evidence of they've been kind of hinting at, we don't need this life. We don't need this avatar. You could put on a headset and just kick it in your house. That has been, dropped like breadcrumbs for a significant amount of time, at least a good 20, 30 years. And that's how they get people comfortable with things. So the fact that now there are multiple companies that are working on iterations of essentially a game existence or a VR existence or an augmented reality existence, which already exists, that would make a whole lot of sense for, hey, you don't need to be you, dude. That doesn't matter. That's not even a real thing. You're a piece of that, and I'm a piece of that, and she's a piece of that, and he's a piece of that, and none of us really matter. We're all just doing this so that God can see different, cool, but that sounds very much like atheism, in a sense. That's giving you a reason to not really view this as profound. It's giving you a reason to not really see this as worthy of, putting real effort into, or viewing it the way that it is, versus like putting on those rose-colored glasses or those shades. It can go either way. Atheism, shades. Rose-colored glasses, super new age spiritualism, both sides. You're sticking your head in the sand and saying, I don't want to pay attention to reality. I want to make up a comic book version of this place so that I don't have to deal with things. That's what that feels like to me. And I've never been able to do that. It's made my life very difficult. It's difficult now because of it. I still can't stop. I don't want to close my eyes or eye to things. I don't want to put up this weird visor that shows me happy times only, and therefore makes me ignore the experience itself, because I don't think that's what the point is. Obviously, that's not what the point is. As I keep saying, all of these different texts are like, hey man, you need to deal with this. You need to deal with this. This is how you get to be you. And it wouldn't feel so profound if there weren't a few experiences that we tend to call dreams that felt like me being shown another version of what this is. We talked about that in Is This the Dream 4 also. It's very, very specifically something that when I hear other simulationists say these things, these very, specific things, it's like, I think you got this from somewhere else. I don't think you're even trying to stress test that as a feature of your model. I think you've just heard someone else say it. It makes sense to you in a way, but you're not saying, does that make sense really though? It's like the math. It's like the math that's being used to prove some of their aspects of the model. If it makes sense to you, but you can't explain it to everyone and everyone be able to get it, or for most to be able to say, yeah, that actually resonates with me a lot, then there's something up with that. most times. Again, it's not to say that we're all experiencing the exact same thing, but for so many to be saying you're not actually an individual. And okay, so I'll give another example. There's also a narrative being pushed of your thoughts are not your own. Your thoughts are not your own. And I'll try to paraphrase the kind of example or experiment they gave. They said, imagine you're sitting in a hut and your ideas are physical. And your ideas pass through one window of the hut. You see them, and then they pass through the other window of the hut, right? If you never reach out and grab one of those ideas, is it really your idea? Now, that sounds all, oh, wow. Why the fuck would your ideas be passing through the window? My ideas come from me. They're directly in response to certain scenarios and certain stimuli and certain memories and certain goals for the future. Like, just because something sounds cool or deep doesn't mean it's true. And I think that there are so many who are trying to like understand this place, and they're frustrated, and the more stressful things get and the less people understand because they've been taught if you do this, this, and this, then your life will be good. It starts to break down your reality, and you need deep down inside to be able to build that back up into making sense. And so now you have these fuckboy gurus saying stupid fucking thought experiments like that, which sound deep. But if you don't step back from that experiment and say, wait, why the fuck are my ideas passing through the window? Can you explain that to me? Where are they coming from? They're going to say it's coming from the piece, the whole, it's coming from the oneness, it's coming from the blah, blah, blah. When, if that is the case, why are you having to essentially force us all to believe that we are of the oneness? If we were of the oneness, and it was so absolute in that sense, wouldn't that just instantly make sense to most of us, if not all, right? Would you need to push that on me over and over again if it were true? Do you see what I'm saying? Like, if that were the case, would you need to push that so intensely that you're almost having to force certain beings to say, all right, man, I guess I am a part of the oneness, whatever the fuck that means. Like, that's not... That it's the same thing with science. If you have to force something, or if you have to do a whole bunch of extra steps to prove your theorem, to prove your theory or your model, generally other scientists will come in and say, they'll pick that shit apart and be like, look, this is not the least, the path of least resistance. That's generally what science is looking for, the path of least resistance to the model, to the, the answer. And a lot of what's being pushed by New Age circles and spiritual circles and metaphysical circles, they all are coming off as cults because they're not actually giving you proof or evidence. I'll say evidence, not proof. They're not giving you evidence of their assertions. They're just saying, believe it. Believe it. It's because I say so. Nigga, fuck that. That's stupid. That's dumb. I'm not gonna do that. You know, it's what sense does it make for you to slowly give away your sovereignty and intellectual mind to just start dogmatically repeating the shit that others are giving to you? What sense? Why the fuck would I do that? I have a brain, you know? And they will also, once you say something to that effect, they'll say, oh, well, you're just, you haven't ascended to the heights to be able to understand, or you haven't done the shadow work, or you're not in your heart center. All of these buzzwords that they don't know about you at all. They don't know those things. Dude, I sat in a cell for 3 years with myself. I sat in a cell for 3 years with myself, some of which I mean that literally. Myself, in max, by myself. Shadow work. I still do that with myself. Constant shadow. It's not, when people say, have you done the shadow work? That lets me know something kind of about that being, because shadow work doesn't stop. Dark nights of the soul, you don't just get one of those. There are things about what's being taught to everybody that are very opportunistic and grifty. Here, let me help you with this. You just give me a little bit of fiat and we'll call it even, you know? So I feel like that has kind of trickled into theoretical physics and physics, where they are now, they've got money. They've got their gurus that are helping them stretch and Reiki healing and meditation, guided meditations and all of these things. They're human. They're human, just like you. So if their spiritual guidance is telling them, oh, we're all a part of the first, and then their very intelligent mind can make that make sense with made up math or with, theory that they can sit up for hours every day. It's their job. They can sit up for hours every day and come up with the different aspects of it, much like we do. That's why I call them colleagues. I am your colleague. Doesn't matter if you view me that way or not. Of course, they can come up with things that support that thing, but it's only supporting it for them and those circles. So even if, I'll be honest with it, within our model, within our thoughts, what we're saying does not resonate with everyone. But what I am putting forward as what I think that potentially is because of, or what that means, is because so many are just hearing someone say, you're not real, you're a part of the first, you're a part of God, and it's just, all of this is just God experiencing itself. You, the dog, the ground, the earth, the sun, the moon, all of this is just God experiencing itself. Sounds very deep. It sounds very like Jungian, and it sounds very esoteric, and whoa, that's so deep. But you still have an evidentiary mind. If there, in other aspects of life, if someone just comes up to you and says, hey, you're gonna die tomorrow, you're not gonna say, oh fuck, you're gonna say, what makes you think that? How you figure that? People are losing their ability to do that. They're losing their, people are losing the knee-jerk reaction of, you got to prove that. You got to give me more than that. You can't just say a thing at me and then have me believe it. In certain aspects of this existence, people are just accepting things, and it's very strange to watch, but you can kind of see where that comes from. And then there's also, the parts of it that are seemingly hard to get away from, like EEG stuff. Frequency stuff is even more prevalent. Not everyone has their EEG map out there. I'll be the first to say that, although there is technology to support the capability to map everyone remotely. That's hard for people to accept, which I understand. That's why I made a documentation video of it. But there are so many that will see documentation of a thing and instantly they will have that cognitive dissonance reinforced, and the denial will double itself. Well, I don't know where that came from. I don't know if that's true. All right, man. That kind of scares me. When someone does that, I back off. I back off immediately, because that's a dangerous, that level of denial is dangerous. That person could freak out and want to fight you, or, hurt people because they can't make sense of that. That's why I don't think it's healthy that people are calling each other NPCs and shit like that, at least to their face. Like, that's wild as fuck to me, to be like, you're a fucking NPC. Like, what if that person's really dealing with some shit and they go fucking do something crazy, to themselves or to somebody else or their kids or whatever. We got spiritual people, conscious people, new age, like everything is love. People are calling other people NPCs. Huh? There's a lot of dumb shit going on right now, and I cannot be quiet about it. I can't shut up about it. It makes me unlikable to most of them. It makes me not very popular in these algorithms. I don't give a fuck. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. The way I view things is truth comes back around. And once people start to see these gurus and these fucking tricksters and these grifters for what they are, for what they're doing, then I think that they're going to go back out and look for more answers. And I think that those of us who are really trying to help ourselves and our family, our stuff is going to pop out. Our stuff is going to, have a sort of renaissance. And I think that that will be one of the first steps towards good things, towards, real progression. Because right now we're just kind of like chasing our tails and fighting about it. We're chasing our tails and fighting about it, and then just stopping and then turning the other direction and doing the same thing. So I don't know. I thought I would put a thought on that. I do not think that we are all one being. It just doesn't make any sense to me. It also doesn't make any sense to most. Again, I would point you to all those religious texts that talk about the hero's journey and how this is a test, and the concept. What makes no sense is the same beings that will say they believe in reincarnation in one sense or another, whether they think it's prison reincarnation or the more traditional versions of reincarnation. Those are the same people that will say, oh, well, we're all one being. If this is reincarnation, why the fuck would we need, if you're one being, why would we need reincarnation? Do you understand? Like, does that make any sense? If we're one being, why the fuck do we need reincarnation? You're one being just experiencing. So karma is not needed in that model, right? Do you need to train pieces of yourself, or are they just pieces of yourself experiencing? That's two very, very different explanations, but they're somehow making them into one thing, and it makes zero sense. And, I would love to have a conversation with someone about this, because I really would like to know, like, has anyone thought that through? Any of those that it is a very specific model, but it is not at all an unpopular. That's like, to me, from what I've seen in these circles, this is the most popular model, is reincarnation. This is a school. We are all one being experiencing itself. We are the unified field. If they don't like to say it's a consciousness or a being like a god. These things don't match each other. The things that you have built to go into that model don't actually gel. And we discussed that yesterday and found some answers that make more sense. And I think we're going to work on trying to present that somehow. Don't know when. I'm not saying that because it's close. But we or I are going to be presenting that at some point. And it's something that I think I'm going to start beginning work on. I haven't talked to my brother about it, but I did a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see what's up with that. Either way, I feel as though I'm starting to come around to a point, at least with the simulation model theory, that may be sort of ready for at least a first presentation. Because this is not something that's going to be like, this is the truth, this is it, and I don't need to do any more research. Doesn't work like that. But I do think I'm coming around to a point where a first presentation of differences can be, put forth. So, yeah, man, I appreciate you hearing me out on that. And if you'd like to support the channel, support the research, the PayPal is in the description of the video and the description of the channel. If you have any suggestions, if you want to participate, if you'd like to have a conversation about what I just talked about or any of the other videos that you see on the channel, if you want to do an interview, whether it be anonymous or not, whether it be on the channel or not, it could just be toward the research that I'm doing, hit me up. gammaauobsidian, gammaauobsidian at gmail.com. Same thing for the Instagram, gammaauobsidian. And yeah, man, I'm feeling pretty good. That's that has this doesn't just this isn't just like projects for work. You know, this is also affecting worldview. This is affecting something inside that doesn't have to do directly with this avatar. I guess I should kind of go more up here than, you know, the heart aspects of your consciousness. But it's doing a lot. It's doing a lot. And anyway, yeah, bye.